Yo, what is going on, guys? It is Tyler here, back with another YouTube video. Now, in today's video, guys, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be making a $600 budget gaming PC build. All the parts I'm using here today are very good budget parts, and they're going to give you the best performance for the price. Now, before we get to building, guys, what I'm going to be doing is just listing off all the parts that I'm using for this build, the prices on them, and where I got them. Also, just a quick note, guys, all the parts that I'm using in this build come from Micro Center besides the GPU and the power supply, which I have used in the previous build. I just decided those were good budget parts that I could bring over to the next build. Alright, so starting off with the graphics card, guys, what we have is the RX 580 from MSI. This is the 4GB model. Of course, as I said before, this is one of the things that I used in the previous build. I got this off eBay for around $120. That's how much most of them you can find for are. So yeah, it's a pretty good budget card, works really well for games at all high settings, and yeah. Next up, the power supply that we're going to be using is this 500 watt power supply from my PC. This is another one of the things that I just found on eBay. I know it has ketchup and mustard cables. I'm planning on maybe changing out the power supply in the future, but it's been working well. It's 500 watts. I got this for around $30. That's why I got it on eBay. It was a pretty good deal. So I just decided to pick that up and then just use it in the next build. Next up for our motherboard, what we have is the ASRock B450M Pro 4. This is a really good budget motherboard for the price. I think I got it for around $60 with the discount when I bundled it with my CPU that I'm using. As I was saying, it works with all Ryzen CPUs. So yeah, it's a pretty good budget motherboard for the price. It comes with a lot of features that not a lot of motherboards its price has. Like, it can hold up to 64 gigs of RAM, which is obviously huge. If you're looking into like video editing or anything like that that requires high amounts of RAM, this would definitely be a good motherboard for you. Next up, guys, for our RAM, we got the G-Skill Ripjaws RAM. This is DDR4 3200 megahertz. Obviously, it's pretty fast RAM, and it's good for any of the Ryzen CPUs that, need higher speed RAM to function really well. So I decided I'd pick that up because it was a pretty good price. I think I got it for around $70 at Micro Center. I didn't need anything too flashy or anything. It's just all black, no RGB or anything, which was fine for what I was building. So, that's what I decided to go with. Next up, guys, for the storage in the computer, what we have is the Inland M.2 SSD. This is 256 gigabytes capacity. I was going to go with a regular SSD, but then I realized that I could get an M.2 for just around the same price, and the speeds are significantly increased between the SSD and the M.2. So this is what I decided to go with because it's just going to be a lot better performance overall for the PC. I think I got this M.2 for around $45 at Micro Center, so it was a pretty decent deal also. Next up, guys, for the case, what I got is the NZXT H510. This is a really good case for, beginners that are just learning how to build computers, and even for people who have built a lot of computers in the past. It's just a really good looking case, and it has a lot of good features for the price. You got the tempered glass side panel, you got some included fans, and you got a good back spot for cable management and everything. I'll show you guys more features with this case once I start getting to the build, but this is what it looks like. I went with the white and black colorway, and it retails for around $70, I think, which is a really good deal for the price, and I got this also at Micro Center. And last but not least, guys, what we have for our processor is the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X. This is part of their 3rd gen Ryzen series. It is a 6-core, 12-thread processor with starting speeds at 3.8 gigahertz, and it can be overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz, so definitely I would recommend overclocking it because you can get a pretty big and significant increase in performance. This is a pretty good card for any 1080p gaming and streaming, and I would definitely recommend it because it's really good for the price, costing you only around $180 at Micro Center, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. And it just came out like a year ago, so it's still a pretty new processor, and I don't think they're coming out with the Ryzen 4th gen for a while, so this is definitely what I would recommend getting for right now. So yeah, guys, that's all the parts that I'm going to be using for this build, so without further ado, let's get into the build. So guys, first thing we're going to start with is the motherboard, so just let me get this out of the box real quick. When you guys open up the box, you guys are going to get a lot of different things like instructions. You guys are going to get some SATA cables right here, the I/O shield. This is another instruction manual, I think. And then we got the motherboard inside of this thing. Alright guys, so after you guys have the motherboard unboxed, what you guys are going to want to do is take out your CPU. And what we're going to do is install the CPU. So right here we have the CPU Make sure when you're grabbing the CPU, you grab it like this, because you guys do not want to damage any of the pins on the back. As you can see, there's some gold pins right there. If any of those can bend or anything, that could easily damage or kill your CPU, which would not be good. And one tip, guys, when installing this, you guys are going to want to look for the arrow right by the AMD thing. And you guys are going to want to match it up with this arrow on the motherboard. So as you guys can see, it's really kind of hard to see, but in the top right corner, you'll see these arrows. So that's where you're going to want to make the arrows point. You're going to want to make the arrows on the processor point right to the arrows on the motherboard. So you guys are just going to want to get those lined up, and I'll show you. Before installing the CPU, guys, what you guys are going to want to do is see this metal like pole right here. This is going to have to go up. So just make sure you pull it out and make it stand up straight like that. And then you guys are just going to want to lightly set the processor in. Do not push it down. It should just lightly just pop into place like that. After it's popped into place and you just notice that it's just kind of sitting right in there, you guys are just going to want to pull this pin or whatever you want to call it just right back down and lock it back into place. Next thing we're going to do after we have installed the CPU is we're going to install this cooler on top of the CPU. Also, guys, one quick note before I apply the cooler. I'm an idiot. Do not touch the bottom of the CPU cooler before you install it, because AMD pre-applies thermal paste, and when I was trying to show this to you guys, I accidentally kind of touched it, so there's a couple fingerprints. I don't think this is going to affect it much, but just to be safe, I would not touch this at all. So yeah, let's get on with the rest of the installation of this cooler. When installing this cooler, specifically on this B450 motherboard, I'm not sure about other motherboards, it's going to come with these 4 screws all across the cooler. What you guys are going to want to do is you're going to want to unscrew all 4 of those screws. This is because the AMD coolers, they come with like their own screws. I don't know if you can see them, like right here. You're going to want to use those screws and just unscrew the ones that are already on. So I'll come back to you guys when I have those unscrewed. After you guys are done installing the CPU, you guys are going to want to install the CPU cooler. So one thing you guys are going to want to keep in mind when you're installing the CPU cooler, if you have a glass case like mine with the glass panel, you guys are going to want to figure out where you want this AMD logo to be at. It does not matter which way you install it, but just it's kind of like personal preference, which way you think it looks the best. Just like which way you want to mount it, whether you guys want to mount it this way or this way. And then just take these screws and screw these in. And then you have the CPU cooler mounted. After you guys have the CPU cooler installed, what you guys are going to want to do is plug in this cord to the motherboard. Also, guys, if you guys were having trouble mounting the CPU cooler, if you're using this specific motherboard, it'll come with these brackets that look like this. You guys are just going to want to remove those brackets and then just screw it straight in, and it should go in fine. So this is going to plug right in close to the motherboard. I don't know if you guys can see this with the camera view, but there's these little like teeth almost right here. You guys are just going to want to take that, and there should be something that matches up perfectly with the little cord that you're plugging it into, and then you just plug it in, and then you're done with that. Next thing we're going to do after we have the CPU cooler installed is we're going to want to mount this M.2 in one of the M.2 mounts. It's pretty easy to find. On this motherboard specifically, it says the Ultra M.2, so this is obviously where you mount it. One thing you guys are going to need before you mount it is look in your motherboard box, and you'll see one of these small little bags with this little pin in it. That's what you guys are going to need to lock this M.2 in place. So yeah, let's just put this in place. To put this thing in place, you guys are going to want to see this front side and flip it over to the back. Then what you guys are going to want to do is put this right here and then just kind of give it a nice little push to make sure it's installed. Just keep pushing until you know you got it in. Once you guys have it in, it should kind of like flop up and down like this. What you guys are going to want to do after that is take that tiny little pin, and there should be a hole right at the end. It's kind of hard to see with the way I have the camera angled, but you guys are going to want to put this tiny little pin right in that hole. At least for me, getting this thing screwed in is going to be kind of hard. Like, it was not really that easy to do with my hands, so I just took this really small screwdriver because you guys are going to need like something really small that'll fit with this screw, and then screw it in, and then you guys should be fine. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do on this motherboard is mount the RAM. So what you guys are going to want to do to mount the RAM is open up the DIMM slots you guys are going to be using to put your RAM in. So I'm going to open up the first one, and I'm going to open up the third one. And then you guys are just going to want to take your RAM, put it in this way. It might vary depending on what motherboard you have, but I put it in facing this way. And then you guys are just going to give it a push. And sometimes it's a little hard to get in, but you should be able to get it in. And then just give it a nice push. Once you've gave it a push, it should just lock in, and then you should be able to just close the DIMM slot right on it. I'm going to go ahead and mount this last piece of RAM right here. So, it should just go in like that, push down, and then it should just close like that. Now you have the RAM mounted. Now we're ready to put the motherboard in the case. So in order to do that, we're going to have to unscrew the side panel. So we're just going to want to take this screw right here and unscrew it until the side panel comes off. It should look like this. I would recommend flipping the case on its side so it's a lot easier to mount the motherboard. So that's what I'm going to do real quick. One quick step you guys want to do before you mount your motherboard is put on your I/O shield. Now this you will find in your motherboard box. Almost every motherboard box will have one. And you guys are just going to want to put it right in here. Sometimes these are kind of hard to put in, but you know, you just got to wait till it kind of snaps in place. You got to put it in like that. And then just keep pushing it from the inside. After it's done, it should look something like this, and then you guys are ready to mount the motherboard. So what you guys are going to want to look for while mounting this motherboard is look at all of these pegs right here. This is what's going to help get your motherboard and lock it in place. So what you guys are going to want to do is take the motherboard that you have installed all the stuff on. You guys are going to want to put it right in here. Just kind of set it in like this. And then just get it to the right pins. So I'm just going to have to slide it back a little bit. Also, it's going to have to line up with the I/O shield, so it's going to go something like this. And you guys are just want to keep playing with it till it locks in place. So after you guys have the motherboard mounted, what you guys are going to want to do is screw it in. So there's one part here to screw in, one part here to screw in, one part here, and one part over here. It's kind of out of frame and hard to see, but you should be able to figure it out. Those are all the parts you guys are going to want to screw in. I would recommend using the screws from the last thing where the CPU cooler was supposed to be. So you guys are just going to want to screw in all the corners, and then I'll get back to you when I'm done. After we have the motherboard mounted, what you guys are going to want to do is flip over the case, and we're going to install the graphics card. The next thing you guys are going to want to do is unscrew these two screws right here on the side of the case. This will allow for this thing to get open so you can pull out these different sections to mount on your graphics card so you can plug in different inputs. For me, I'm going to have to do two where I take out because it has two different spots right here and right here for the graphics card. So depending on what one, it might only take one, but since I have the RX 580, it's going to take me two. Next comes the easy part, mounting the graphics card. So what you guys are going to want to do is pick one of the slots. I'm going to pick this one right here, the top one, and you guys are just going to want to push down on this, which opens that part up. You should see it snap. Then what you guys are going to want to do is just take your graphics card, and it really should just line up. You guys are just going to want to make sure, just get on the side so you can see where it's going in. Give it a nice little push. And then you should just hear it click. And now you have your graphics card in. Last thing, to make sure the graphics card is secure, you guys are just going to want to stick a screw in the little part where there is a hole in your graphics card. And then you guys are just going to want to screw this right in. This really doesn't do much. This just makes sure the graphics card gets locked in place and just doesn't fall out. After the graphics card is secure in, what you guys are going to want to do is just put this little bracket thing right back in where it went. After we have that part in, we're ready for cable management. To do this cable management, you guys are going to want to unscrew this screw and this screw to get the back panel off. After you guys have the back panel open, it should look like this. And you guys notice that you slide this out of the hard drive tray, and it comes with this little NZXT packaging. And then I'm actually not really sure what is in this, but I guess we'll find out when we open this up. Inside of the package, guys, it comes with a bunch of different screws, like extra screws and stuff, and different things to screw in your motherboard. It comes with a part that controls like the power and the USB and everything. It also comes with some zip ties, and it comes with this little headphone jack splitter thing. So that's actually pretty convenient if you're planning on doing some stuff like way better with cable management and stuff. I just love how that comes with it. That's part of just how great of a budget case this is. Next thing you guys are going to want to do is take the two cables that look like this. There's this one and there's this one. You guys are going to want to take them and you guys are going to want to route them through here. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm sticking them right through here. You just want to route them right both through there. Then you guys just want to take these and plug them into the corresponding things right here. There's one right next to it I already have it plugged into. Then you just plug the other one right into here. Now we're going to mount our power supply, which goes in right here. And just a quick tip, make sure the fan goes facing downward, so it's facing down like this. So that way you get proper airflow going through the computer. After it's mounted, guys, what you guys are going to want to do is just line this up and screw it in. Once it's screwed in, it should look like this. After you guys have your power supply in, what you guys are going to want to do is find this 8-pin cable right here and route it through the top of your computer and bring it through the other side. Once you guys have that through, you guys just put this 8-pin into that 8-pin hookup right there. Cables, what you guys are going to want to do is take this 32-pin hookup and you guys are going to want to route it right through the top here like we just did earlier. And then, guys, as you can see right here, I plugged it into here. For me, it was a really tight fit, so you might just have to do some maneuvering with the cables to get it to fit, but it will fit. So after you have that plugged in, you're done with all the cables being plugged in. So yeah, after you guys have everything plugged in, you guys can pretty much just put on the side panel after you like everything and how it's managed. And yeah, you're almost done building your computer.